Hi, and welcome to Coaching Voices podcast. I'm Pravin Sharma, an executive and leadership coach and consultant with over 2 decades of experience in the industry. I truly believe in the transformative power of coaching and the profound impact it can have on people's lives. In each episode, we dive into candid conversations with seasoned coaches, exploring what coaching really is and whether it's the right path for you. Together, we uncover how you can unlock your full potential and step confidently into leadership roles within your organization. Happy New Year 2025 to all the listeners of our Coaching Voices podcast. And in this first episode of our Coaching Voices podcast, I'm delighted to introduce you to Joshua Schulman. Joshua is an in-demand speaking coach and world-renowned international corporate trainer, specializing with a whole suite of training modules from traditional business communication training and public speaking to sales training to popular business English programs to even acting and stand-up comedy classes designed for business professionals, and uniquely the skills of strategy and tactical game of chess and poker. Without further ado, please welcome Joshua to our Coaching Voices podcast. Hi Joshua, welcome to Coaching Voices podcast. How are you this evening?
Fantastic, wonderful.
I'm really glad that we're connected. We've been talking about this for a while, and finally we had this opportunity to talk to each other. Now, let's start off by talking about your background and the entire journey.
Well, I love the whole process, right? This idea of coaching. You know, it's not something you look on when you're a job board or when you're looking for initially or applying or even going to school and you're majoring. What are you going to be? What is this coaching thing? It's something that comes to you over time, that you build some skill sets, and then you start realizing, I'm pretty good at this. I'm pretty good at this. Even better, I can explain it. And I really believe that learning and that process is not just saying or hearing or listening or showing or reading or watching. It is teaching. When you teach something, you get really good at it. If you do it a lot, you confirm, you edify what you understand about that. And before you know it, you're off to the races. And I have a lot of interests. As you may know, I teach a lot of different things. I coach everything from, of course, public speaking and presentation skills to sales training. So we got this notion of pitch, present, and persuasion, right? Not a pat on the back. You either get the deal or you don't, whether you have, stakeholders or people buying products or services. Everybody has to sell. Maybe you even want your kid to just clean up the room. And then also business English. So I have a unique niche with my work because I work with a lot of people all over the world, and many of them with English as a second language. So struggling, getting promoted to managerial levels. And I work with everybody from Indian and Vietnamese to Chinese, Russian, Korean, Pakistani, you name it. A lot of Arabic, Hispanic folks who really want to have a better command of the language. And then I teach acting and voice and stand-up comedy. And oh my gosh, probably I have more people taking my public speaking classes, acting classes that are CFOs and CTOs because they got to pitch 10, 12 times. And how do they hit that pathos and humor, to replicate it so it's authentic and genuine. Right. And then I teach chess and poker too. And people are always intrigued. How do these things all work and interact with each other? Reminds me of a great book called Range by David Epstein. Why generalists triumph, right? In a specialized world. I love the idea. It's not just one thing. All these things I teach are under the umbrella of communication. And I didn't jerry build or try and make that work. Listen, when we play chess or poker, we go, oh my gosh, I didn't see that. And in speech, we go, I didn't mean to say that. And my sweetheart, she always says, honey, one thing, you're a great speech coach, business coach, acting coach, chess coach. Can't you focus on one? Shouldn't you focus on one? Because we always hear that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no. So that's what I've done with my business. And it's kept me pretty busy, brother, for so many years now. And I do at this point right now I do pretty much 7 days a week. About a month and a half ago, I took off Saturdays, but they've kind of crept back in. But I do about 75 coaching sessions a week, one-on-one group classes on 8 time zones. And that's been pretty much my staple. And as people leave, new groups, new people come in, and I love it. And that's my bread and butter. I do that day in and day out. And then during the month, I go travel around domestically, internationally, doing workshops, seminars, boot camps, formats, all kinds of other things. But my day to day is nose to the ground, coaching, and sharpen the saw, if you will, as that Stephen Covey thing goes. So that's a little bit of the premise of kind of what I'm doing and how I got into it. We'll get into it in a few moments here, I guess.
Time management is one of the critical aspects of everybody's life. Given the fact that you spend majority of the time in your business, more or less like coaching business, I would say, how do you manage it? How do you find time to do some other extracurricular activities? When do you go to the
I teach time and goal management, brother. Yeah. So that's part of it. So no, literally, I know how to framework things so I can make them work. Like right now, I had a cancellation. I was able to fit this timing sequence. In another hour, I have a meeting with Pakistan, okay, because it's the next day. I've got all kinds of circumstance. I had dinner with my sweetheart earlier today. In the evening, I make it work. I'll start with 3 sessions in the morning. I take a break. I work out. I have lunch or my smoothie. I then do another 3 in the afternoon, maybe 4. Then I have dinner with my sweetheart at 5:30. We walk our dogs. We have 2 Yorkshire Terriers. Come back. I do another 2 or maybe another 3 or 4 in the evening, depending on scheduling. And it's just been a rhythm for many years. And I just love it. And I really enjoy not just people, but I mean, these are, you go to bed as a coach thinking, what did I do today? Wow, this was amazing. Full array of humans that I was helping in one way, get a job, give a eulogy, God forbid, give a toast, present more effectively, get promoted, whatever the sequence is. And then when I wake up in the morning, Robin, I have the same thing. It's like, what are we doing today? What do we got going? And I know what it all is because I got it on my one who shall be nameless, that smart device, because before I go to bed, I'm lying there in bed and I say, hey, tell me what's my schedule for tomorrow. And it tells me the first 4. And I'm already in the rhythm. And I know because I have a huge calendar board where I see things. I mean, it's like a war room here. You see my office. I mean, I have calendaring, I have legend system. I've got it down to a science in regards to how this works. And I keep my team really lean in order to be able to do that.
Every single day is a different day, right? So that's how we have to schedule our time, right? Absolutely. You're very good at what you're doing. And I truly appreciate the work that you're doing, helping people to find their destiny. Behind everything, right? Where did you find your inspiration to go into this particular field?
Well, I was a young actor, and as a day job, I had worked in restaurant as a waiter, and that's how I got my first agent at 19, 20. But then after college, I was teaching commercial workshops. I had all kinds of gigs, and I got fired from that because I would ask the parents to step outside of the room and ask the kids, really want to do this? Is this what you're interested in? And then, of course, the owner of the business, like furious, why are you doing that? I said, the kid doesn't even want to do this. The parents are just trying to make some nickels off this kid. And it's just, so that didn't work. And I realized I wanted to framework my business in a way that, not just if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, but the real axiom, feed your soul, not just your wallet. Right. Mm-hmm. And so then in sales, I always loved sales because it was competitive. I wanted to be on the top of the board. And I remember one of my first sales jobs, man, I'm selling roofs on top of houses. I'm going up there selling $80,000 roofs, coming down, measuring them, selling it to the husband and wife or to the, the owners of the house. And it was a fascinating thing. Well, I fell off a roof. I'm not an avid rock climber, so I love this climbing up on roofs. I remember buying the ladder at Home Depot. It was one of those that broke up into 4 parts and you could stick it in your trunk. And anyway, I fell off my first roof. I come into the office, the sales office, and there's a team of about 8 sales guys, all ages, all characters. And I said, I fell off my first roof. What's going on here? And the guy said, oh, you fell off your first roof. Kid fell off his first roof. That's awesome. Well, that week I was a little injured. I was messing around. Salespeople, when you're not selling, you're messing around. You don't have control over your time. You might go to a movie. I went to a movie. I went to one movie 4 times in a week to saw the same film. And it was Glenn Ross. And there I saw Alec Baldwin giving this speech as a sales, not a trainer or guru. He didn't care about these people. He was really kind of rough and tough with them. He was the top sales guy, right? And I was riveted by that. And I loved Al Pacino's character as the top sales guy. I don't know if you've seen this, a David Mamet play was made into a movie. I mean, it's an amazing cast. Alec Baldwin, Ed Asner, Al Pacino, Jonathan Pryce, Jack Lemmon. I mean, we're talking Alan Alda is phenomenal.
I don't know how I miss Alan Alda. I mean, talking
you
about
got to see this film. It's called Glenn Ross. It's a must see for salespeople.
Yeah. I'll
So,
definitely look at it. Yeah.
so I'm watching this, and then there's this amazing famous scene that Alec Baldwin does. You can catch it on YouTube. It's where you've heard phrases such as ABC, always be closing, or
Okay.
you've heard maybe put the coffee down, coffee's for closers. They made t-shirts on that. And I said, this guy's a jerk. But I like how that confidence, the amazing presence he had. And so I wanted to be a sales trainer, but in order to be a sales trainer or a sales manager, you got to be a top sales dog. But then I realized when you're a top performer and I became a very good salesperson, you don't want to be a manager because you'll make less. You make more than, if you're a top performer, you'll make more than your sales manager. But you know what? Sales managers getting married, have kids, mortgage, they like the cushy job, the office, kind of like the Kevin Spacey character in that movie. And that's different. Anyway, so that movie inspired me. Okay. And then I processed it. Every sales job I ever had, I was trying to find avenues and ways that I could be a trainer, right? If I could teach others, because you edify what you know, you confirm what you understand by teaching. I'm not a grandmaster, but I'm pretty good at the game of chess, but I'm better at teaching it. Let me tell you, we got a lot of basketball coaches who are the most phenomenal coaches, whether it's Phil Jackson or Pat Riley, you name it. They may or may not have been the best players back in the day. Whoa, were they phenomenal in how they explain the game to me, break it down so they can get the best and the most out of people. And that's what I was able to do.
And that's the whole thing about coaching too, right? Whichever the coachee, you want to get get them more performance, more thing out there than what you have in there, right? Because they're going a different variety of, and that's where the that keep you going happens right there, is because when you see the progress, when you inspired them to become what they wanted to be, that's where the beauty is. That's where the
people don't know what they want to be. That's the thing. We don't know what we don't know. And then you hear all this way crazy advice. Probably people say things like, be yourself. No, I don't want to be myself. I want to be another level, right? You talk to successful people, you start finding an interesting through line. There's no there. They don't get there and go, I've arrived, and buy stupid dumb shit, or buy certain cars, or they're like, I have to prove I've arrived. They're like, what's next? Right? They're looking for that next driver.
Right.
And that is, what that's about. And that's what fuels me and why I enjoy it. That's why this particular entity that I'm involved here, this is not an exit. It's got my name on it, man. Schulman Communications Interactive.
Right.
I'm 57, brother. I'll be doing this at 87. I got a 90-year-old student.
Yeah. Why should you stop?
Don't ever quit.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, I was talking to one of my guests, Alan, and then Alan, he considered himself relatively, in the older area. I mean, but what I asked him was like, I didn't ask him that. He said like, well, why should I stop? I mean, why do I do that? I mean, if I can help somebody to go from point A to point B, I still wanted to do that. Why should I stop?
What are you going to do? Retire? What am I going to do? Play poker, chess? I'm teaching it.
Right.
Maybe get some more golf in though.
Now, your journey includes being in a toast. We talked about a toast right before we started this conversation, and then also SharkTank coach as well, right?
What do you mean being in a toast? Are you talking about
Toastmaster champion?
Oh, yeah. No, I was active with years. In fact,
toast. Yeah, don't get me wrong.
No, I teach people how to give a toast. I have a series called "Say a Few Words," how to give a meaningful toast, or how to, give a eulogy. God forbid, circumstances like that. No, but I was involved many years ago. One of my employees, I was with a company called Berlitz Language Cultural Company for many years. Okay? I had a business teaching and coaching before. They recruited me to run their business corporate office in Torrance, California. Mm-hmm. And, we had Honda, Toyota, Nissan, all of those companies, some of which have left. Nissan has left yet. Toyota has gone to Dallas, things like that. But one of the elements that I really appreciated was the opportunity to really kind of hone and build on my skill building and development. And so I asked one of my employees, who was a teacher, but he was a supervisor, and I said, you got to do more presentations. We need more people in your presentation trainings. He said, I get really nervous. I get uncomfortable. I said, well, dude, come in here. Look it on and we pulled up the computer. I pulled up Toastmasters. I said, there's one down the street. I'll go with you. It's Monday night. You know what? You'll get over your fears of public speaking. My grandpa did this back in the 30s. I'll go with you. And I went and I loved it. I got a kick out of it. And they told me, I said, you're pretty good at this. I said, well, I've been coaching for a while, but I love how you break it down so in unique ways. They said, well, we have a speech contest stuff in a few weeks. You should join the club. You can enter the contest. And I did. And I won in the club.
Yeah,
And
of
then
course. Yeah.
and then because I wanted first place, I went to the area, then they came in first, then I went to the division, came in first, then I went to the district, and then 2 months later, get this, dude, I'm going to Hawaii in the regionals for the World Championship of Public Speaking in
That's amazing.
2006. So
That's
yeah, so
amazing.
Toastmasters has always been a wonderful place in my heart. I've
Yeah.
won over 50 of their crazy speech contests.
Right.
Not as active and involved now as I could be, but I speak at many of their clubs when I get a chance. And when I travel around the world, I go to Toastmasters. Even Saudi Arabia has a very renowned club in Riyadh. They had me speak there, and I'm an honorary member of their club now.
Nice.
And so that was a part of that. Now, Shark Tank, I have a lot of clients who were auditioning for it because I work with founders and startups. So I don't work for the studio, for ABC, the production. Actual entrepreneurs reached out to me for their coaching, their pitching training.
Oh, okay.
So I had many of them. And
got it.
As a result, people knew of me that I did that, but I don't interact with them. And in fact, I don't care if they get on the show. I know that sounds weird, but I don't. Be prepared for real seed round funding. Because if you don't get on the show, you know what? You still got to go pitch, man. You got to go. We're getting, wherever that might be. And you got to be able to break down the fundamentals and the financials of your company, and not just the genesis and the cute story or the empathy or the pathos, whatever.
Right.
That makes for good TV.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Now, if I may ask you, we're talking about the diverse set of people that you coach. I mean, sometimes I've, noticed that you're coaching some average Joe. Sometimes it's an entrepreneur. Sometimes a diplomat. You are there everywhere.
I have everybody. I get former
everybody,
football
right?
players.
How do you tailor your coaching to meet this diverse area of people, their needs, right?
Well, when I meet them, I identify, I have a series of questions and circumstances trying to determine what they're trying to accomplish, where their challenges are. In business, we have a P&L, a profit loss.
Right.
I'm taking notes, and I ask them, what's our P&G? Let's create that for our discussion.
What's P&G?
Pain point and glee point.
Okay.
One area that you think is impeding you in communication, which is why they picked up the phone to call me. And the glee point is an area, however, you do well, but it's not self-assessment because that can be askew. So someone told you when you have insight and you go, okay, all right, okay, this is not to make you feel good, but you do this well. And then from that, I can then really coordinate that. And I want to make sure, brother, I have about 4 or 5 sessions a month of people under 25 years old on board. Because I want to work with a lot of these folks. They're coming out of the pandemic. They're coming out of social media woes. They are struggling in their first job. They're just having challenge. I got plenty of opportunities to work with folks at executive levels, a lot of CEOs, C-suite. I love that stuff too, but I want to mix it up and work with everybody, which is why I put a little 10-year-old for chess in the middle of the day.
Oh, okay.
Because I have so many time zones. At 4 p.m, it's 7 back east, and I got this kid, for chess, and it's just a nice little reprieve and keeps me sharp. So a myriad of different things. Almost everybody is in my roster of who I work with is unique and different.
So you're talking about do some assessment, then you figured out what coaching approach is needed for them.
Sure. I do a demo. I give a 1 hour free class. My colleagues or coaches think I'm nuts. Why do I give a free class? I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Close ratio is very high.
Yeah.
If I schedule 10 meetings in a week, I'm going to close 8 to 10 meetings that week. Not this 3 out of 10 that your average person in sales does. And I say that not with hubris. I say that with process flow. I have a very specific process flow of things that I do and the way I ask and how I understand what they're looking for and what I can do to accommodate that.
Ever happened to you that, you spend an hour with them and they realize that, well, this is not what I'm looking for versus,
not after an hour. No, okay. I know by the 20-minute marker.
Okay.
The 20-minute marker, I have a conversation with them and I tend to ask some very interesting questions, probing. We discuss concepts. You mentioned about, IQ stuff, IQ, EQ, emotional quotient, AQ, adversity quotient. I even talk about premises, this notion of CQ. I talk about this notion of LQ, love quotient. A buddy of mine, Chris Wise, has a whole book and a whole series that he's done on things on this. Great coach. And that's LQ is love quotient. Do you care about what you're talking about? And it's at that point when I say, listen, you've known me for 20 minutes. I loved it.
Right.
Old. I know we're going to be working together. Or I could tell they're not coachable or they could care less. Or someone's making them take this. I don't want to work with someone who's mandated by their boss or some kid whose parents are making them take this. Got to have the initiative and the desire saying, I want to go to another level. And communication is what does that.
You definitely have something in you, man. I mean, I was really intrigued. I was really into it when we spent like 5 minutes
Sure.
together, like, yeah, thank you. I really, truly appreciated that. Now, let me ask you one more thing
Sure.
about, I mentioned this about P3. We talk about the pitching, presenting, and persuading, right?
Yeah.
Which of these three do most of the people struggle with?
Well, we need all of them, and I think people don't think they do. I would love to hire more trainers, but I'm having a problem. I need to find people who can teach public speaking, right? Presentation skill, sales training, how to persuade and convince effectively. Yes, whether it's a sales rep or it's someone who's dealing with stakeholders, right? Warren Buffett often talks about how public speaking in his sales training was his secret sauce. But I have a third component, which is business English. And my sales guys and gals stopped paying attention to English after fourth grade. Okay. And my sales people, my English teachers, who I've had many over the years, don't really have business acumen or sales acumen.
Got it.
Public speaking coaches tend to be they're like on this fast track trying to be Tony Robbins. Look, I work with comics actors. If people just want to be famous, they got to realign and reassess what they're doing. This is ridiculous. All these folks are trying to be the next Tony Robbins. Just how about you be a fantastic coach and focus on what you do and do it well?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they see Tony Robbins and everybody wants to be Tony Robbins. I have some sort of like fascination with when people are presenting. Towards the end of this presentation, I talk to them, I try to spend some time with them, try to understand what it is, how this presentation was done. And many people tend to believe that the effective presentation is more or less about how you're telling your story. What's your take on it?
Well, I'm an actor, and I believe that at my core, what I did, but I don't want to be an out of work actor. So I wasn't going to sit there, just twiddle my thumbs waiting for my agent to call so I can get 5 lines on a crappy TV show. I'm still in the union and stuff, but I'm not waiting for some big gig that'll get me. I don't want to sit on a set for 16 hours anyway. I joke about how I do 10, 12 shows a day. Try the veal. Just did a keynote at Disney Hall for 1,000 insurance lawyers. Find me an acting gig that pays that. But listen, people need to earn the right to tell the story, and they don't. They just start, right? And then you're like, oh, we doing this? Oh, okay. All right. Well, let me take a seat here. Or like, I had an old uncle like this. He told the same story over and over again. Right.
Yeah,
so they reconcile. We need to learn how to have more stories. One of my modules, we deep dive into extemporaneous speaking and humor and how we can tell our stories and be amusing with them. And also have ways that we can speak on the cuff about anything and everything and anywhere at any time. And stories, we have a lot of them. And I have actual exercises where I work with my clients. We reconcile their life experiences to be able to hone. And they'll have, before I'm done, dozens. I'm not talking 6, 12. I'm talking about dozens and dozens, even more, of great stories they can use for different circumstances and times and sequence anywhere. By the way, let me give this suggestion to your audience. There's this notion of, I call it exercise. You're 25. So just think of 25 words. What are they? Well, you'll know them when you hear them. Then come up with one of 5 things: a comment, a thought, a feeling, opinion, or a memory. Comment, a thought, a feeling, opinion, or memory. If you can, then start to reconcile this. You will have something to say about anything at any time. I love it when the teenagers and kids I work with, they test me on this, and boom, I do a 3-minute speech on that subject with a hook, meat and potatoes, an ending, a conclusion that brings it home, right? And they go, whoa. Yeah. And you can do that too.
Yeah.
That's one of the challenges. I'll tell listen, as an audience listening, there are 2 parts of a great speech, a great presentation, or certainly a great story. It's got to be relevant, unexpected, and unexpected. I got to see where you're going with it, but I got to I did not know that. And so people need to get in the habit when they say things to someone and they respond, oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I didn't know that. Wow. Or they write down what you say. Oh my gosh, Robin, that's gold. You got to walk away from that circumstance and say, how did I frame that? How did I phrase that? That was really cool. And now you've got that one. You've got another one. You got another one. You got thousands of them. And then, so after a while, you will always have something to say. I'm not the old uncle forgetting what I'm talking about. If people have heard my podcast, they might hear a cool story. They may have heard me say it again. I don't care. It's a fantastic story to explain, or a metaphor that explains that concept or that idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you talked about being in Riyadh. You're going to Pakistan, you're having this communication in the next 2 hours or so in
Yeah.
Pakistan, all these things let's talk about the nuances, the cultural nuances of communication. What do you think of it?
Well, people from around the world want to hone their English skill. They want to get to another level.
Why people are so infatuated with the English? I just don't
because
get
it. Because it's the world, it's the language of business.
Yeah.
Singapore, when they really started exploding as a society, said, and their leaders made a deal. First of all, they pay they can't be corrupted as easily. They pay their politicians a lot of money. In fact, I think around the world they get paid the most. But in Singapore, and people have to learn English. And they grew and started getting some of the best minds all over the world. And it's a place to go. My mother, years ago, she was a senior transplant coordinator at UCLA. And then she was the president and founder of NATCO, the National Association of Transplant Coordinators. She spoke a lot around the world, and she spoke in Singapore. She told me about that country. It's just like phenomenal. But the point is, English was essential. So when I'm working with folks who are diplomats, I'm working with all kinds of people who want to just break through with their English.
Right.
Just definite articles and plurals and prepositions. I'm talking about idioms, right? Business idioms that we use all the time, not cliche or trite expressions, enhancing and building proper and better vocabulary. I'm not talking about fancy words just showing off, right? But we have better words to color and encapsulate what we're trying to say. When the computers were they were calling them super popular back in the 90s. Steve Jobs called it, we're on an ascendancy right now. Like there was a native speaker can't tell you the difference between figures of speech, like metaphors or similes or onomatopoeia or malaprops or alliteration. We use those great rhetorical devices like chiasmus or anaphora, or what we just said, alliteration, Dr. Martin Luther King saying, I have a dream 8 times. It was not in the first speech. It's not even written in the speech. He said it again. He said it a third time. He said it 8 times. He was like on to something. And all that dynamic can help us. So that's why around the world, I'm working so extensively, and I can't hire trainers who can teach this because they just don't know that. I'm a nerdy English teacher at the end of the day.
No, that's not. I mean, initially when I said like why people are so infatuated with English is because I'm from Nepal originally, right? So when I'm talking to some of the people from Nepal in Nepali, they don't pay any attention. Now, once I translated into English, when I started talking to them in English, all the ears are raised, and then they're giving me undivided attention. Whenever I say same thing in English, verbatim, there's no differentiation whatsoever. So that's the perception there, right? So,
and movies and TV coming from the States. My mother came to the United States as a little girl, as a refugee from the war. She had blonde hair, blue eyes. Our family's Jewish. She was hidden in a Catholic convent during the war. And when they came to the United States later on, they got a sponsorship to come to the United States with not a word of English. She was watching movies and that's how she was building her English skill, and then I got a Ukrainian guy, an engineer with a big company out here. He says, Joshua, when I was 14 years old, I came to America, and one of the first words I learned was like. I said, what? He said, like. All the kids were saying like. I wanted to learn that too. He said, I'm hiring you to get rid of like.
All right, that's fantastic. Let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk about the business communication here. For you mentioned about the C-suite, like CIO, CMO, CFO, CEO, these executives and leaders. What are the most critical communication skills they should possess in this dynamic world?
They have to simplify and break things down better. One of the first things, I work with a lot of engineers, talking about a lot of Indian, you can imagine engineers.
Yeah.
Apple, Facebook, Google, and also in IT and all kinds of stuff. And they will always ask me the same thing. Joshua, I need to speak at the executive level. Well, I'm like, let's not kill anybody. Let's start with the executive level, but we'll go from there. But the idea is sophistication in speech is not wearing a bow tie. There is a manner of speech that they want that gets them to feel and taken more seriously in meetings. And then when you cannot get into management, if you cannot inspire your team, you cannot get in management if you cannot lead them into the fire, right? Where they'll follow you to the end of the earth, if you will. But you also have to be able to simplify it as you go up to the higher ups, because they don't know the details of what you're talking about. And then when you get into that, that's a very big shift, for a lot of people who went from being engineers into the element of business role. That's a very different skill set. And English is the one thing that's going to carry them over. And that's what they're really looking for. I tell people all the time, you've heard about, like, Simon Sinek talks about why, start with why. He did a very famous TED talk about why. In fact, one of the books I always talk about, start with why, how great leaders, right, inspire everyone to take action. That whole premise, people love that idea about why. But when you're speaking and presenting, you have to have that clear in your heart why you're doing this. But why did your boss ask you to speak? I'm going to promise you, if your boss asks you to speak or present at work, you are up for a promotion. You don't even realize it. They want to see how well you perform in front of others. And so as people are building up and cascading through their career and having opportunities, it's not luck, right? Luck. What is that? Hard work and opportunity, when they collide, things happen, right? Marvelous things will happen if you're prepared for it. I joke about, because I teach poker, I say, I don't believe in luck, right? There's probability, plausibility, and actuality. Luck is superstition. It's lazy math. But when we can see the sequence of pattern, and one thing I talk about, Prabin, a lot is SOS, right? Not save our souls or save our ship, right? Systemize, optimize, scale. What is your process flow? How can you optimize it and be most efficient? And scale, how can it grow? Now, we can use that with language. We can use that with building a business. It could be a myriad of things. But you have to have process flow.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Process is very, very important. And it's very crucial that, if we wanted to stick to that particular path, we just have to. If we can get into that lane, hopefully it will see the end of the light there.
And leadership can articulate what that is. They have to. And that's where they struggle. And I'm telling you at all levels, because I got guys in their 60s. Now I'm 57, but I got guys in the 60s who are calling me up all the time, because now they're being asked to be on a podcast like this. And they're struggling with and a lot, or they don't know how to framework. How do you take a career or all the ideas and frame it into some 2 hours? Some of them are on 2-hour podcasts. They really want to go in a deep dive in their career.
I mean, like, I was thinking, so this podcast is about 30 to 45 minutes or so long. So what I've read recently was, like, people are more in tune to hear like 4 hours podcast. I really don't know how people will do 4 hours. I mean,
brother, their commute is getting longer. If you live 4 hours away from LA, you can find an affordable house under $300,000. You're not getting anything under $1 million within 2 hours of LA. So no wonder commutes are 4 hours.
It's overkill, like 4 hours.
Podcast is 4 hours. That's what they want.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's a new trend that's happening, and people love to, sit and then listen to the podcast 4 hours or so. Let's talk a little bit about the success here. I'm pretty sure that you have tons of this success story in the career that you're in, and you probably get this success story pretty much, like, I would say, every single day, because you're coaching like 60, 70 people at a given time. Let's take us into that success story moment and share a little bit from your experience.
I really do. I feel they're every day, and they're very different and disparate from a football player, a professional football player who didn't get the Tom Brady media treatment, to now being a realtor at 27 and having some money to open up a real estate and learning the industry and doesn't know much about that stuff. And because he's 6'8", 250 pounds, is asked to go speak at all kinds of real estate functions and events. And it's a great business opportunity. They don't know what they're going to say. And I'm helping them shift and create the story that you can identify what are the through lines from professional athletics to business. That being said, I also work with a lot of Navy SEALs and a lot of military folks in general. Why? Because after 20 years in service, they come out, and now in civilian life, the private sector does not work the same way. You cannot speak to your employees the way you did in the military. By the way, I blame the military. Why? We have so many poor public speakers. And when I say poor, I don't mean that they don't have any nickels. I'm talking about bad, because in the military, they have this concept called the old Navy way. When you have to train millions of people for public speaking, you got to do it very simple and very quick. Not that they're simple people. You have to just do it very quick and simple. So they say, you tell them what you're going to talk about. You tell them what you told them. Everybody's heard that framework, right? Tell them what you told them private, whatever. I don't like that framework, because that's why people start speeches with, today I'm going to talk about, I'm not very good at public speaking. Is this good? Is this working? My name is Bob. Today I'm going to talk about Bob. I know who you are. You were literally just introduced. I know what you're going to talk about. Stop saying and stop banging on that mic. That IT guy or gal gave you a perfectly good mic, and don't tell me you're not good at this, right? But to start off with, today I'm going to talk about. Really? I know those things. So I want us to be like Quentin Tarantino and take the ending and move it to the beginning. And I structure and I formulate that better, and I think that can help. So I love working with military folks. First of all, I appreciate their service and what they've done. A lot of Navy SEALs, there's a lot of famous podcasts now with Navy SEALs. So they all think, you know what, I didn't get paid as much as I would love while I was in the service. And this is a sexy career and people are interested. I'm going to start my own podcast.
There's a guy, I think his name is David Marquette, I guess.
Yeah, sure. There's quite a few.
Yeah. He wrote a book, Turn the Ship Around, right? So he was in the Navy. So anyways, I mean, and he became a very big public speaker in terms of persuasion and all this kind of thing. So I remember that.
But that's not a thing. It's like being a comic and looking for your next gig. People will hire me and they say, I want to be a public speaker. Well, you know what? That's not a thing. Be a coach or a business and do all this stuff. And then you're asked to go speak. And you know what? You're going to charge a lot more anyway.
Right, right.
It's just,
what do you say to these people, right? I mean, who comes in front of the podium and is like, "Oh, I'm a little nervous today," and the crowd just burst into laughter, right? So,
why are you telling them this? I think it is essential, Kevin, that you don't tell people you don't apologize, don't give excuses, and don't give explanations.
Right.
Nobody notices anything. They don't pick up on those things. So I have a little acronym I'll share with your audience. PBC. Pause, breathe, change eye contact. Now I teach acting and Shakespeare and all this. And back in the day when you're doing Shakespeare, we have iambic pentameter, the meter of the line. If you forget your lines, if you forget what you're saying, you're a little screwed in Shakespeare because there's only so many these, thys, and thous, and you're trying to stay within the poetry line and the timing sequence. If it's a David Mamet play and you're like just dropping an F-bomb, you can get back yourself on. But the fact is we hold, I pause, breathe, getting oxygen to my brain, change eye contact. I'm looking at someone else. If I'm indeed prepared, the material comes flooding back. But for us to start hedging our bets and asking the audience, forgive me for being nervous. It's like, are you kidding? What? How does that work? It's the same thing with uptalk. People are frequently going up in conversation and their inflection, it's called the inflection question, right? Where it seems like they're wanting, do you believe or agree with what I'm saying? No, and like a young saleswoman, we were talking about that the other day. She said, you'll love our products. Our services are top notch. Really? Do you believe that? Our products are top notch. You're going to love what we offer. Boom. Going down, having a declaration in our speech, honor, punctuation, if you will.
Right. Now, if I may, I wanted to stick to this topic of, public speaking and all this. So for those who are listening to this conversation, if somebody wanted to master the art of presentation, presentation comes with the persuasion as well, right? So what would you recommend for those who wants to be there? What's the starting point for them?
Well, if they want to coach, first it comes to what are you going to coach? Now, I've done for years poker games and clinics. And of course, I was teaching friends and people who didn't know how to play. And I was pretty good at that, kind of explaining so they could pick up the game real quickly. As they joke in poker, it takes 5 minutes to learn, a lifetime to master. And so in any of the things that I've taught or shared or given insight, people picked up on it very quickly and was able to do it themselves. I love the old axiom. I teach it to 6-year-olds all the time. Well, 2 of them. One, you can't lead a horse to water. If you lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink, right? So people are going to have to put in the work. And the other is, if you give somebody a fish, you feed them for a day. You teach them how to fish, you feed them for a lifetime. Absolutely. I will never go without a living. Absolutely. Right? In sales, I've always tell people, become a great salesperson. You will never be out of work in your life. And if you can combine that with entrepreneurship and being a coach, you are an entrepreneur. You are selling your product and services.
For somebody who wants to become a coach, wants to pursue coaching as a career, what advice you have for them?
Similar to what we were talking about, the idea of identify what your subjects are. What are your topics? What is your approach? What's going on right now in the sphere? What is the way people do it? And what is different? I encourage people to start going out and finding opportunities. Like I do magic. I learned magic because my sweetheart was shopping and I'm like messing around with 10, 15 people outside in the mall. Before I know it, I got 30 people and I just got very good at doing cards and my coin stuff or whatever. And it just became a thing. And now I teach magic to kids. Now it's not really, I didn't build that up so I could have a product of selling magic or teaching magic. But I love it because I do it at conferences and events. I mess with people with business cards, right? Where I appears that I made their card blank. I do all these really cool, fun stuff that makes not just me memorable, it makes it interesting and I have fun. So for someone who says, I want to be a coach, what are they saying? They want that lifestyle. They want to have more freedom. Sure. Right. They want to have, make more money because you know what? I mean, you got to find your value, and as you charge and you're found your worth, right? When someone gets promoted or they make X amount of money because of that promotion or get that job, they don't think twice about what they paid you. And I went to USC for college, brother. It is now $100,000 a year. A couple of my friends' kids just graduated last year and they're like, Schulman, help me out. My daughter's struggling with job interviewing. I'm like, you just spent $500,000 for education for your kid. Why don't they have this as a skill set? So I'm getting more and more young guns, 19, 20 years old, 21, approaching me and saying, Coach, my parents won't pay for college. I said, all right, what are you going to do? They said, well, I'm going to give you money, but it's for education. That's a thing now, I guess. Their kids are creating their own syllabus. So I'm like, great, look, I got a 48 track. You can sign up for a whole year. And I appreciate you'll like some of the stuff I'm going to teach you, which at the core of it for kids was skills, successful kids implementing life lessons, like what they didn't learn in school that they need to know. And so that would help if people can identify, okay, I'm going to teach this. It's like, come on, doctors, lawyers, when they go into one framework of work, look, lawyers, few years, they get marginalized. That becomes what their focus is. My dad's practice was civil litigation. He was a lawyer for years. I was going to be a lawyer. The 11th hour, I changed my mind because my dad's practice went to complex probate and estate planning. Well, I didn't want to do that the rest of my life. And good trial lawyers, and my dad was an awesome trial lawyer. But good trial lawyers settle. They don't go to trial. But if I want to be out there and try, I coach high school debate teams. I love that because the kids, the teachers, the principals are calling me. They're like, we're not getting any hardware. Yeah, you're not winning any awards because all you're doing is teaching the kids how to frame the argument and not how to engage the argument.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So that would help them when they're looking at it as a career, that this is what I want to do. Then you can play around with your pricing. You can figure out what your offer is. Like I have a 10-week program of coursework. I have a 24 track, which is 6 months. I have a 48 track, which is a year. I created those because people kept wanting to continue. So if from the get-go, if I can explain what I do with someone and they can make a choice, what do they want? Small, medium, or large? Listen, people call me, they want long-term coaching. But my 10-week is standalone. It's built into a format that you're going to come away with some serious skills at the end of 10 weeks.
Right. So that's more like a teaching one. It's not like more coaching.
No, it is coaching. It is coaching. If you're going long term, but people can only afford or do coaching for so long. It's not like going to a therapist. You're going to go on indefinitely for the rest of your life. I need people. I work in a different milieu. I'm working with people who need skill set for this specific thing. But on the other hand, I don't want to be a Band-Aid coach. When people call me all the time, they're like, "Oh, I just need help with this thing on Thursday." Well, then get a coach for that. That's not going to cultivate a skill. It's like a golf coach. You got like 26 things to hit a golf ball smooth. It's not a natural maneuver. Well, speaking is not either. I'm not going to teach it to you in 1 or 2 sessions. I'm just going to put Band-Aids on the one speech you have already, which you're only reading, which is not. I want you to learn how to speak with no notes, no piece of paper. Or when you're presenting with a PowerPoint, that you're not looking at the PowerPoint and you're paraphrasing concepts or ideas. When I do presentations, I do 6-8 hour workshops. People come up on the break, probably all the time. They say, can I ask you a question? You never looked at your slides. You never looked at notes. How do you remember all that? Now I do a lot of work in VR, right? I'm doing a lot of work in virtual reality.
Yeah.
And now I'm realizing I'm speaking to an audience. I have no notes. I have no podium. I have nothing. I got to remember everything I'm going to say. I love it.
Got it. Okay. Because, people are trying to blend like coaching, problem solving, consulting, teaching, everything into one and call them like a coach, right? So, but there is a subtle differentiation between all these different domains in there. So that's what I was trying to get into it to understand, like, what are the various aspects of it.
Well, the semantics, whether you're teaching, coaching, training, whatever it is, and then certain things require certain certification, certain things don't. I have a lot of therapists, friends. and even family. And I suggest there's opportunity to go out and do coaching, which is life coaching or other things. I don't market myself as a life coach, but I go to parties. My clients introduce me all the time. This is Josh. He's my business coach, but he's actually my life coach. Right. So, but there's elements that people can do because with life coaching, you can work online with people all over. You don't have to be licensed in every other state. I don't have to be licensed.
Yeah. This profession is not regulated in terms like, I can just like throw some money at it and then stand up my website, call myself a coach.
Well, fair enough. But if you taught me something and I did what you said and I learned from it and I practiced it and I went out and I made a living from it, thank you very much. You did your things that are incorrect or wrong or can be self-destructive. That's the issue. That's very problematic. I know where my lines are, my boundaries, right? This is a very emotional thing for a lot of people. Sometimes there's deep-rooted issues because mom and dad told them to shut up all the time. And if that's the case, they should talk to a therapist. But if they don't know what to do with their hands when they're speaking, probably, or who to look at, or how to be funny, or how to structure better your speech, or how to start it off that you astound people, then I got you.
Right. No, absolutely. And that's the whole idea, right? So, Joshua, we're coming towards the end of this conversation, and I really hate to break this session. I mean, love to have another hour or so, but since the time is very limited for a lot of people, and
no worries
for yourself also. Anything you want to talk, anything that you missed that you always wanted to say, and maybe I was just crushing you and couldn't let you talk.
Not at all. Listen, there is something I've always appreciated about the Japanese. I work extensively with the Japanese business community. In their culture, they have something called ikigai. I-G-A-I. And it's essentially like a Venn diagram. And I think if your audience does this with their career choosing or formatting or transition, listen, at any given point, we're allowed and we're entitled to a de novo, right? To begin anew. You don't need just to be essentially God bless folks who are born again or this, that, and the other. But I'm talking about anyone can say today is a new day. Today is Monday. And guess what? Monday, or whatever that day is. Monday, the score is 0-0. So basically take 4 parts. You take something you love to do that you're very good at. Does the world need it? And can you get paid for it? If you can converge that into a career, a job, guess what, brother? That's bliss. And I promise you, I've been doing that for many, many years. I intend to do it for as many as I am graced. And as a cancer survivor, I've faced that notion of what that means. I've had 13 broken bones in my life. I've had 5 knee surgeries. And so I can appreciate that some of those challenges may or may not always be there. But while we're here, let's live a life well lived.
That's the best way to put our life together. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. People can find me at www.getcoachingfromsci.com. They can also go to LinkedIn. I'm very active on there, and I have a talk show on there once a month talking about business communication concepts. Last month we talked about conflict resolution, and and then we talked about metaverse and VR. And in January we'll be talking about term sheets and startups. So all kinds of interesting stuff. So go ahead, follow me, connect with me on there, reach out to me. If you're interested in coaching, I'd be more than happy to give you a free complimentary coaching session. If you're serious and sincere about this, and see how I can help you with that. Otherwise, I'll take a few moments, give you some quick advice or some thoughts if you need it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Coaching Voices podcast. I hope today's conversation gave you valuable insights into the world of coaching and leadership. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps others find the show and supports us in continuing to bring you inspiring content. Do not forget to share this episode with anyone you think might benefit from the discussion. And if you're looking to explore coaching further or have any questions, please feel free to connect with us. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep growing, keep leading, and stay curious.